This is chapter 22 review, test over chapter 22. And you have the review sheet. How and when did the exodusters' westward mass migration to Kansas finally falter? And it started to falter when steamboat captains refused to transfer more former slaves across the Mississippi. So as the exodusters arrived at the Mississippi River, finally after a while, the steamboat captains refused to carry them across the Mississippi. So the exodusters westward, mass migration to Kansas, finally falters. Great achievements of the Freedmen's Bureau were in education. Education was probably its greatest achievement. The white Souths viewed the Freedmen's Bureau as a meddlesome agency, a meddlesome federal agency that threatened to upset white racial dominance. The Freedmen's Bureau was not viewed as a very popular federal government institution. What was Johnson's view of the Freedmen's Bureau? Andrew Johnson also viewed it as a meddlesome agency that should be removed, should be abolished. And so this is clearly Lincoln's plan for Reconstruction, the Freedmen's Bureau. Johnson becomes president. Johnson wants to get rid of it. Andrew Johnson was named Lincoln's second-term vice presidential candidate because he would politically attract the war Democrats and the pro-Union Southerners. So as a political, remember, Andrew Johnson was not Abraham Lincoln's first-term vice president. He was a second-term vice presidential candidate. So it was kind of, he chose somebody from a border state for political reasons. Unfortunately, then he becomes president. Controversy surrounding the Wade-Davis bill and the readmission of the Confederate States to the Union demonstrated the deep differences between President Lincoln and Congress. Deep differences between Lincoln and Congress. In his 10% plan for Reconstruction, Lincoln promised rapid readmission of southern states into the Union. So in a way, he was much more conciliatory towards the South than even Congress wanted him to be, but Lincoln could carry this out. He had the authority to do so after winning the war. The main purpose of the Black Codes was to ensure a stable and subservient labor supply in the South. The Black Codes provided for a ban on jury service by blacks, a bar on blacks from renting land, punishment for blacks if they engaged in idleness, and fines for blacks who jumped labor contracts. Those are the Black Codes. So in a way, kind of forced blacks to basically remain somewhat slaves. To many Northerners, the Black Codes seem to indicate that the arrogant South was acting as if the North had not won the war. They were just acting as normal. For Congressional Republicans, one of the most troubling aspects of the Southern states' quick restoration to the Union was that with the black population fully counted, the South would be stronger than ever in national politics. So that makes reference to what we talked about exclusively yesterday. And when the South starts to count all population, all citizens, they actually gain 12 seats in the House. And they come back stronger in the House of Representatives and in politics in general than they left. The first and only ex-Confederate state to ratify the 14th Amendment in 1866 and thus be immediately readmitted to the Union was Tennessee. The 14th Amendment guaranteed citizenship and civil rights to free slaves. The root cause of the battle between Congress and President Andrew Johnson was Johnson's soft treatment of the white South. Johnson was, again, a Southerner, or at least from a border state, and he was way too soft on these Confederate states, according to Congress, and this caused all kinds of problems. Eventually, Stanton, Secretary of War, and Johnson start to get into arguments, and that leads then to Johnson firing Stanton, violating the Tenure of Office Act, or in fact breaking that law, then leading to impeachment. Both moderate and radical Republicans agreed that freed slaves must be granted the right to vote. Reconstruction constitutional amendments are the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Okay, 13th abolishes slavery. The 14th Amendment gives citizenship to those that were former slaves. And then the 15th Amendment has to do with all citizens have the right to vote. 13th, 14th, and 15th are considered the Civil War or Reconstruction era amendments. Many feminists were especially disappointed in the 14th Amendment because it didn't include them. It just talked about males now having the right to vote. During Reconstruction, African American women assumed new political roles. They organized mass meetings. They participated in political rallies, participated in black church life. But, again, they did not participate in voting. Women were left out, including black women. The KKK, do you know what carpetbaggers are? Do you know what freedmen, the scallywags? The one that does not belong in that group, obviously, is the KKK. So the carpetbaggers were Northerners. Remember, you have now 12 new seats that are opened up in the South. What's a carpetbagger? This is a guy that packs his duffel bag, packs his bag, moves down to the South, and then runs for one of those seats. He's a Northerner living in the South, running for one of those seats. A scallywag is a Southerner running for one of those seats, but talking about kind of being loyal to the North. Carpetbagger is an outsider coming down. A scallywag is a Southerner who acts like he's going to be friendly to the North. Carpetbaggers and scallywags. Freedmen, of course, are the former slaves. The Union League, this is a group that supports helping these slaves. KKK, definitely not. KKK, the rise of the KKK, enforcing black codes, enforcing Jim Crow laws, becoming very active in the South, trying to make sure that blacks don't vote, don't participate in the process. The primary motive for the formation of the KKK was a white resentment and the ability and success initially of the black legislators. So initially, when blacks are allowed to vote, initially there is some participation in the South, and there actually are some black candidates that win. And that doesn't last very long at all. The black codes come in and other Jim Crow laws to kind of change that around and make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's the rise of the KKK as well. Even though the Force Acts and the Union Army helped suppress the KKK, secret organization largely achieved its central goal of intimidating blacks and undermining them politically. The official charge that the House of Representatives used to impeach President Johnson was dismissal of Secretary of War Stanton was contrary to the Tenure of Office Act. The Tenure of Office Act says you can't fire him, but he did. So that's the official charge levied against Johnson, bringing him into impeachment and ultimately a trial. Secretary of State Seward achieved the Johnson's administration's greatest success in foreign relations. Secretary of State Seward achieved the greatest success in Johnson's administration when he purchased Alaska from Russia. And then there may be kind of a short essay question. Might read something like this. How could a guilty verdict in the impeachment trial and the conviction trial of Johnson, how could a guilty verdict have set a dangerous precedent and gravely weakened one of the three branches? Okay, so maybe evaluate this idea of a political-oriented impeachment against Johnson. And does that, if the results are to actually remove the president, does that in fact weaken one of the branches? And is that then a major deal? Is that a major thing? Is that something that the Founding Fathers would have kind of rolled over in their graves? You could also, we put this little essay up here on the board yesterday. Can you talk about the unintended consequences? What happens when you talk about Congressional Reconstruction? And this idea that when you now count 5/5 or you count all citizens of the South, that adds 12 congressional seats, and also conversely removes 12 seats from the North. So it's a kind of a double whammy. You add 12 to the South and you remove 12 from the North, and that brings then not only former Confederate leaders, but a couple of colonels and a general and the former vice president of the South. They come back and they bring additionally 12 friends with them, 12 more friends than previously. And then also how that then gives them not only additional congressional power, but it also gives them additional electoral power when it comes to voting for a president. If they do then continue to have Southern president, it gives them power in the judicial branch when it comes to appointment of federal judges, because that's presidential, and that's the presidential job. So anyway, that's the review for Chapter 22. The test is actually very short. There's just 22 multiple choice questions and potentially an essay. And the essay is short, just a paragraph or so.